that should be it. Things like what inspired you, or whether if it came like from personal experience, or what was it that made you think like, yeah, I can just do like dining experience with this theme.
The beginning of it was that, well, in terms of us working together and wanting to create this event, was that we felt like there hadn't been, we'd both worked in different dining experiences kind of with the same premise, but we felt like there hadn't been one that really like married food, performance and the kind of the whole experience together. Like you had one that would like be really theatrical and there would be real emphasis on the performance, but then the food would be lacking. Or you have ones where the food was really nice, but then the performance was a bit sort of secondary. So we really wanted to have one where we thought about the performance and the food at exactly the same time, and we thought about them with the same importance from the very beginning. So that's how the conversation started about Diabolical Roses. And then how did that, well, we sort of wanted, should we pick Valentine first, or did we pick the, I can't remember now. We'd had lots of conversations about what was interesting.
I think I wanted to do a visceral event using hearts and tongues as a way to explore this notion of kind of anti-Valentine's, and Valentine's actually being a bit more sexualised than it is in the media and day to day. And then you were talking about, at the same time, talking to me about an event you wanted to do where a singer sings a love sonnet to someone and then starts to cough, and as the performer's coughing, you bring up a heart and then you give your heart to someone. And it was those two conversations that came together, this collision of wanting to do a kind of visceral food performance and actually quite a visceral physical performance as well. So they came together and we decided to kind of fuse them, these two ideas, and bring them together into a conversation.
Because I remember last year you did show us a book with the recipes. What was it?
That's the Futurist Cookbook. So that's
1930s, I think?
Yeah, it was written in, I think, 1930. And the recipe, I don't know if it was a Marinetti recipe, because the Futurists, they all wrote recipes. And so the title was based on that. And it's kind of, and throughout the performance, there's this notion of the diabolical, isn't there, or the absurd that carries it through. And then the recipe itself was part of the menu for the evening as well. So that's hugely important. So we also brought in different aspects of futurism. So futurists in their cookbook, they use things that are tactile, so they use touch a lot. They work with performers to make sounds, not so much speech, but maybe touch and gesture. So we used a lot of kind of futurist kind of vocabulary and performance rhetoric to kind of develop something that was more than, or had a wider context, I think, a broader context than just a kind of standalone event. It had like a historical context as well that underpinned it.
And then we started to think about the food and the performance as like a kind of story. So what's the story of the food? How is it going to come? And how's the performance going to interweave? We spent a lot of time like talking about like what the menu would be and what order it would come in, but also like how that influenced the performance, because we had this idea about Valentine, and then we sort of talked about like characters, and then the food being almost like the kind of the structure of the story. So we kind of came about this idea of like, okay, what about if it's kind of like the journey of a one-night stand, or it's so the audience are they're in this environment, and the characters don't necessarily, or the people that are performing around them don't necessarily relate to the story that's being told on the table, but they're kind of encompassing it and all around it. And we talked about sort of like archetypes of romance, like, you know, Cupid, and these like romantic events, like, you know, a marriage. Then we talked about the table becoming the stage, and then that also kind of felt a bit like an aisle. Yeah. So then we played around with what these characters could be, or who could be at the table, and that then we knew that the table was going to be long in the space, and that was going to be the stage. And so, as well as each course being a kind of part of a story, there would be these characters being the story. And then we had the Cupids. We had like these ideas for these Cupids being hung by what are they called? Harnesses. Like around the stage. Like we kind of went through so many ideas, didn't we? We're like, okay, we can't afford that. next. I think that's still there, that's hanging.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, what about if we have these 2 cupids and we have them slightly raised, but so we got this, it was in the space already, it's like a kind of high ladder that was pushed around the space to kind of give them a bit of height or grandeur of like being a bit taller and being a bit godly or in a way. And then we played with the bride being this kind of, that there wasn't anyone in particular that she was marrying, it was just like, she was on a search for something, and actually kind of when she became more crumbled and disillusioned and drunk.
Yeah, she was a kind of a sad character actually, wasn't she? Because she really she was just looking for love, and she didn't quite find the right person. Then she married somebody who was in the room, so there was a marriage ceremony in the room.
One of the guests.
Yeah. So she picked somebody from the table and went this kind of ceremony with them. And then as they went back to their table, then she started drinking, and she just got drunk throughout the evening.
Actually,
and just not really. No, she couldn't afford that. So you just see her leant up against a wall with a bottle of wine in her hands. Yeah.
And then that opened up the first course, which was consummation, like a kind of play on that. So the like red soup and the vulva, and it being about like breaking your hymen in that first.
Snapping it right.
Yeah, exactly. In that first kind of. Actually, we've missed a course though. Should we talk? You know the menu a bit though, don't you?
Yeah.
A bit.
Yeah. So as well, like I guess in like the futurist style, we wanted to create this atmosphere that was a bit. We had these kind of chorus of characters that were sort of. I don't know. They had like sharp blonde wigs, and they wore kind of schmucks, and they were almost a bit psychedelics. They wore like kind of. It's like PVC, like PVC chokers.
I really like the like I'm not sure if they were like tights and
tights
were also petals.
And they were kind of, they served, but they were also kind of these kind of performance characters who didn't really talk to the audience, but were kind of provocative, a bit sort of, I don't know, in my mind they were kind of, that when you entered the doors into the space, it was a bit like it was an alternative world of this kind of love, it should be like a bit fantasy. And so they were like these kind of nondescript, cross-dressing kind of, so it was boys and girls that were the same outfit, same hair,
same lipstick.
Same lipstick, and then also everyone had this kind of outfit on, so when you came in it was,
so you couldn't really tell if that was a male or female.
Probably could, but it was just saying like, it doesn't matter, everyone is like this. They're kind of, it was like a very like clear uniform, androgynous uniform,
fleshy coloured. Yeah, so and square in shape, so that it to a certain extent concealed the male or female figure. But you know, the man was obviously a man, wasn't he? So it's still, but it kind of lessened people's gender.
Yeah, and they started once they'd kind of been met and been led to the car park to watch this slow dance and lit by the car lights. They then were taken upstairs, and it was like there they kind of went through these gates, and then it was into the venue. And as they
where was the venue? Was it in the
Diabolical?
In Vivid projects, they kind of went into the back alley and up the stairs, and then they got greeted. They got signed in and greeted and given
name tags.
Name tags.
What was on the name tags? Because I only know this editor, she got lovely.
So they were all like affectionate names, like darling. Some of them were not, so like like fatty or motherfucker or slag or whatever. But like names that you might call a loved one. That's the idea.
Exactly. So through good and bad times, so they suggested things like like I don't know, schmunkins to things like arse fairs. Not arse fairs, but they were like
sugar tits or whatever.
Really.
And people really like that because they like to step out from their own reality. And the venue and the environment was outside of normal reality, so they kind of really matched with that. So they could be fancy. So people go up to people and go, "Oh, hello, sugar tits," and it's kind of it's quite funny.
And then they got their welcome drinks, and they were sort of hanging in the bar. And as they're in the bar, the food element started. So they had the hearts, and they were on these really long arrows. so like Cupid's arrow, and they were skewered onto the end of it, so the performers sort of like ran down the length of the tape as fast as they could, and then when they got to the end they were in slow motion, and they like slow motion would like, kind of drew the arrow towards the guests, and then they had to eat it off the end of the arrow.
And what was it? Was it like a heart or?
It was chicken heart in miso. And honey.
Or artichoke heart. Was
Yeah, for vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that was like a... And sometimes they played it like, you know, two of them went together.
Yeah.
As if they were kind of sparking like the first parts of Cupid heart.
Yeah. So it's like being hot, you know, struck in the heart by a...
Yeah. Then there was the dance. So there was like every kind of chorus got together, and it's like a kind of opener, I guess, to lead people to the table. That was to How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of got everybody doing, so they started this dance, it was like quite kind of straight face, deadpan dance, but then the audience kind of had to start copying, and then they went out and they danced with the audience, and then they got them to do the actions and kind of had their hands in the air and spin, and as they spun they kind of led them down to their seats. So there was like no kind of time to, they just had to go with it, so then they had to like go and sit down. I think that was like a good choice actually, in a way, like because it meant that people joined in straight away. There was no kind of hesitation. There's kind of they were on board from the beginning. There was no like deciding whether they were going to be involved or not. I guess from the very start, you know, they had to just opt in to taking part and knowing that they're part of the story and part of the action.
So there was very much no barrier between being a performer and a viewer. It was kind of merged.
There was, well, to a certain extent, like the audience could participate. I wouldn't say perform. They had a performative role, but I wouldn't say that they performed, because there was a difference between, well, there's a difference between improvisational performance and participation. So I think there's, and it's kind of a fine line. But yeah, they'd interact or participate, but I wouldn't say that they perform. But it did kind of start to blur the boundaries of that notion of authorship and who is in charge. So for instance, on one of the sit-ins, the guy who got married was extremely performative and loved being on the stage and having an audience. So in that way, he did take a performative stance. Whereas maybe other people were a bit more reluctant to be involved, and we were really cautious about that, because somebody contacted us before who had autism. So she wanted to go, but she was really nervous because she didn't want to be made a spectacle of. So we were kind of aware of that. And we briefed all the cast and the chorus to make sure that they didn't at any time they weren't too provocative with her. And so we kind of knew where that line was, we felt, and I think we handled that really well actually.
Yeah, I do as well.
Everybody, you know, you can kind of, I mean, you're so professional, the cast is so professional that they kind of know where those boundaries are. You know if somebody's biting or not, don't you?
And also I think like it was so tightly choreographed and timed that there was never any moments where they felt like they had to fill time by using the audience, because I think sometimes that like provokes an element of like desperateness in like wanting people to do stuff, and then actually everyone gets a bit tense and moves away because they don't like, it just gets a bit, so it's more about like encouraging rather than like really making them perform. But there was definitely no like boundaries in terms of like we touched the diners, we fed them, we squirted cream in their face, but we invited them to do that as well. So we built it up throughout the performance. But, you know, the first part that they have to eat. From then, I mean, I guess you offer it as a provocation to say, here's an arrow, we're putting it right in your face, how are you going to eat it? Some people want to take it off with their fingers and eat it. Some people are like game and they want to eat it with their teeth from the arrow, and that's the kind of option, I guess. It's the provocation to say like, what are you going to do? And so then then after is it helpful to go through it?
Absolutely. That was actually my first question, so go for it.
Okay. And so the chorus were kind of, they started the performance and they were very interactive with the audience. but they also did all the service. So we kind of were looping the table a lot and being quite tight with how, where things are laid, how people get their spoons. So the first course, we wanted it to be kind of sensual in a way, and like that they had this consummation they had to drink with their mouth.
So there are no cutlery at all?
No, not for the first
Because I know you don't like cutlery that.
No, not so much. It's like, it's kind of a weird thing, isn't it, cutlery? Because it's like decentralised the eating process, it's really perfunctory. And actually, just that idea for that course of just, I was really specific about what bowls we needed. Like, so we had noodle bowls without any texture. Yeah, it's really important so that they know, you know, so they could cut. There was a certain size. So they had like this beetroot consommé, which is clear, so people look a bit like bloody liquid with these kind of label or dumplings in. I can't remember what it was stuffed with. Can you? Was it goat's cheese?
Yeah. Goat's cheese. I think it was just goat's cheese, wasn't it? Because we wanted it to, we wanted like the labia to like, because there was shaped labia to open, and then it was like kind of creamy inside. But it's also in this like deep, rich like beetroot soup.
Oh.
And they ate it like that. And the dumplings are obviously like a little bit big for your mouth, so it's kind of a bit awkward. Like, we tried to like bring that in, didn't we? So that like, you know, like sex is always so glamorous in films, and it always makes, well, it makes me anyway, and most of the people I imagine, feel like really incompetent in the bedroom. That like, actually, like it forgets all those noises that you make, all the like.
Yeah.
Vaginal noises and no, but you never see that in films. It's always so clean.
Unless it's like a real like comedy moment.
Yeah. And so this was kind of to bring that awkwardness, like the menu and the performance was devised to make it like slightly awkward, so that as you drank it, there was that noise that you couldn't avoid.
And you couldn't be polite. You couldn't just sip it and then. Like you had to, if you wanted to eat it, you had to find a way to
get it in,
chew or swallow, or like So there was like barriers broken down in that sense, that you're all sitting along this big table, and it sort of feels almost like a wedding, but actually you have to eat. You have to eat with however you can.
Yeah. So that was the first course, and I'm trying to think what happened.
Put my notebook. I couldn't
I know,
find
I haven't brought
it.
anything with me. Sorry.
There was another performance in between. So basically we kind of split it up so that each the soundtrack as well was
Oh yeah, I've got
made
some
to
that
fit the
as
12.
well.
Please.
It was made to fit the kind of 2 hour, and it went from like the night, you know, like kind of as if they'd just met, this one night stand, they'd met, and then it went over, and each course was that as well. So like, so it was the arrows, the consommé, then did you go straight into the meat course? Was there another one?
No, it went into the meat course.
Meat.
Didn't it?
This was like the kind of the loin, and like this was supposed to represent the kind of like muscly bit of sex when it's the foreplay's over, and it's like kind of gritty and fleshy Yeah.
So.
And that one they did get cutlery, but they had to retrieve it from a pocket which was inside the dress. So as they got their plates down, they were shown the kind of inside of the dress, and they had to reach inside and get this cutlery. So I guess in that sense we were sort of opening up a question, like opening up to say like you can also be playful here, and like and opening it up against that, like, cause I guess it's a kind of slightly sexual provocation to like show your chest, or to get someone to reach down your top to get cutlery and to get knives and stuff. So and some people were really up for it, and then some people were also just like, oh gosh, just don't look, just dump your hand, you know, especially guys, because it's a fine line, you know, they're being asked to do something that in normal life
to them.
Exactly, and in normal life would be completely frowned upon, you know. But it was like that kind of. So they got to eat that with a knife.
Yeah, they got to eat that with that. And
It was venison, wasn't it?
it was venison. It was tenderloin, and it was venison. And the idea was that, like Sarah said, it was kind of muscly and fleshy, and the plating was quite aggressive, wasn't it? Wanted something like there was a palette for the food actually, and it was kind of reds and kind of blood red and dark red, not kind of pink scarlet. It was like kind of a bit more visceral than that. And so the course there had can't remember exactly what it was. Don't write that down. I mean, don't quote that. Yeah, Kaye said she didn't know what it was. It was tenderloin, and it had like a black pudding crumb, and then it was really important to us that we served it on white plates with kind of this slash of red down it. And I wondered if that was a beetroot puree. I can't remember.
I think that was black. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
I can't remember, but it was like so it was like this violent, almost red. So it kind of again suggested a sexual act, and actually that it's not always kind of sweet. That you know that it can be quite. What's the word I'm looking for?
Aggressive.
Penetrative.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I will definitely call that.
So the food resembled that, and then we wanted to do something really performative with that, didn't we? That was about that part, the groin or the tenderloin
Legs of the thighs, yeah.
So we devised a piece where the performers
they kind of danced to this like
oh yeah, they did a really
jazz. They like
so we talked
it was
about
kind
it.
of yeah, so nice. And it was they kind of it was kind of this straight face dance, but it was also quite like hip movements. So it was kind of quite abstract because they were doing this kind of quite sexy dance, but without any like feeling or motion. It was just about like movement. And then the tables were broken up, so there was like there was a gap in the middle, which was also about performance in that middle bit. And at the end, at one point in the song, we all lay on our backs and had our legs. It was just at the top of each end of the table, you just saw like legs sticking up. It was like these kind of cycling leg movements, and then thrusting, and then as they moved around, so they were kind of you could see a performer there, but you could also feel one at the back of you doing this kind of circular dance and gyrating and moving their hips around. And then again, you saw this kind of cycle of the legs. They were cycling the like legs and thighs sticking up quite close to the table. I guess also it was like quite funny because for some people in the middle of the table that weren't right at the edges, it wasn't quite as distracting as it was for the people at the end of the table who just had like legs like here, dancing with them, and they're eating their meal. Like, hello. Oh, we forgot about the bit where they had to speak to the person opposite them. I think that was at the beginning as well. They had to. I can't remember what the script was now, but it was
Someone somewhere wants you, fuck you.
Yeah, very good. So they had to stand up and look in the eyes of the person opposite them, who definitely wasn't someone that they had come with, because usually people sat this way with people that they'd come with. So we didn't, give them any structure. They could sit where they wanted, but they were led quite quickly, so people tended to stick by the side. So yeah, they had to stand up and look at the person in the eye, and slowly say this thing, which then became louder, that they then had to shout.
But it's quite actually, because imagine like what I find amazing working with Sarah as well is that, I know this is kind of a slight aside, but it's really relevant, I think, is that when we're devising stuff, it's hard, isn't it? Well, for me it is to know what's going to work, because like when we do, like we rehearsed that bit and we had 2 people to rehearse it, and one was my partner, he's kind of slightly, oh my god, is this really happening to me? And then the other one was this drama guy, like big drama theorist. So, and they had to I think they did it to each other, I can't remember. So it's like these 2 guys, Ed, who's particularly kind of heterosexual, like very kind of macho, like saying it to another guy. So, and it was hard to see what was going to work.
Performers, there was nowhere else to hide.
In a room of 36 people, compared to 2 people. So I really rely on Sarah to know what's going to work and what's not going to work, and it did work absolutely so. It really exceeded even how I imagined it would work. Like they were just like absolute crystal moments that just that worked with the audience, and the audience, there was a concern. I think we both felt that are they going to interact or not? You don't know who's going to be in the audience, and we had all different kinds of ages as well, from probably 1820s right up to 50s.
No more. 70s.
70s.
No, late 60s, because my mum and her friends came.
Yeah. Well, I thought she was like in her 50s.
I'll tell her. She's in her 60s. I think one of her friends even.
Yeah. You don't need to put
Well, definitely about 65, I would say.
Wow. So it kind of to work a script that's about sex and to make sex evocative, provocative, and also awkward and scintillating all at the same time.
Yeah, but also funny and
genius,
engaging,
really.
like the people.
Genius.
No, yeah, and that people could feel. I guess we wanted it to push their boundaries, but we also wanted it to be accessible and that people could enjoy it, and they wouldn't, it was about entertainment as well as like them pushing their boundaries, but also them not closing up and not wanting to do that. So I guess it was humour was like how we kind of entered that point, so that people didn't just go and close up and then disengage with it.
In a deadpan way, not in a light jokes, because the performers didn't speak
At all.
No. So
the Cupid and the bride
didn't. The Cupids and the bride. That's why I think it'd be really important for you to see the film, because you can see how non-verbal communication works in that kind of situation, and how also it made a differentiation between the cast, if you like the bride and the two Cupids, and the chorus, how different their roles were, because the Cupids and the brides all spoke. They were the kind of orators for the night, the narrators, and then the chorus kind of were equally, if not more important in a way, but in a very different way. So there was a huge difference in terms of what they wore and also how they communicated.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because also the Cupids kind of became like the maitre d's in a way, like they explained each course in a kind of poetic way. Like one of our devising tasks was that they had to find a way to write them in. I don't know exactly what it was, but they had to find a way to write these courses in and link them in some way to that. I don't know exactly what we did with them now, but there's definitely some writing and devising and how they use words to describe each course, and the provocations that they could use it, how they could link it to sensuality in a way.
Yeah, so we had the menu, if I'm correct, and so it would say, although I can't remember what it was, venison, like that. And they would go, they would say things like, instead of it just on the menu, it would say venison, blackcurrant.
Exactly.
Then they would find words that could link those ingredients. It would be, for instance, smothered. And the way they'd present it was like, oh, smothered. And they'd be all quite provocative and sexual about it. And sprinkled with or massaged in. So the use of the words to describe the menu for them was about how to suggest that it was like a sexual act in itself. The rest of
their kind of performance was quite heightened in a way,
great,
and like
actually.
flamboyant.
It was really funny, yeah. So it was it was really good actually.
That was good. And they had this Mr. and Mrs. love quiz that they did with each other as well down one end of the table. So they'll be like right down the other end, and they both had these microphones, and they were doing this kind of Mr. and Mrs. style quiz conversation across the table that ended up in a kind of, because I guess at first they were presented as sort of one being, or we talked a lot about whether it could be like it's almost like a counselling or like they're experts in sex and love, and the guests are there to learn. They're like their pupils in a way. So we talked a bit about that, about who the audience are in relation, why are they here, why are they in this space. And so they were kind of giving them lessons on how to love, and in that moment when they had a kind of breakup, just like the argument that they had across the table. And visually it looked really great as well, because they were on these they were standing on these platforms at the end with the spotlights and microphones, doing this kind of debate across, and had to a bit like a ping pong match, watch one side to the other. And then we had the next course, which was. And then climax.
Actually, we had a palate cleanser.
We had the cherry.
Yeah, cherry. So this idea that you just popped your cherry. So there was a cherry. I'm trying to think how we even served that.
Was it dipped in chocolate? You had to pop it out of the jelly,
it was in a chocolate mousse, I think, when you popped it out.
And then they were fed to the audience, and And the chorus were kind of around like seductively looking in people's eyes and eating the cherry, or like feeding cherries to people in the audience.
Yeah.
So we were kind of building up
at that
this.
point, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we had these mirrors that they would use. Was that for cherries?
I think so. Somewhere. It was a long time ago.
It's 2 years ago.
Almost.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Let's see if we've got the menu up so we can.
It's on the website. Yeah, so the performers would use mirrors and then watch the diners eating.
So we held the mirror kind of in front of them.
Yeah, so they could see each other. Yeah, so I could say see Sarah looking at me and she would be, and I was watching her and she was watching me. So it's this kind of awkward thing, like a reflection back on yourself. I think that was in the mirrors bit, the cherry bit. I think so.
Yeah, it was. I think it was. Because also it's about that kind of like vanity and self-love and the idea of like watching yourself eat, or having that. What is it? That was Poland, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Or was it that bit that there was mirrors? Because it was also on a mirror. Oh yeah, the kiss.
Oh yeah, I
It was
remember
just
it really
it was
well.
on a plate, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember it now. I've seen the menu. Yeah, it was on a. It was cooked. We cooked the cherry in a cherry brandy, like a quiche, and then with the stalks on, and then we used some of that liquor back on the plate. But we added a Szechuan, so the liquor as well. So it had this heat, that is really fierce heat. Yeah, so it was really nice. And lime. Yeah, we just grated lime over, so it just cut through the sweetness of it. So it was really delicious stuff. But yeah, so you just had one small, tiny plate with one cherry.
Yeah, and great
I
like
think I have
lime
seen that. I
zest.
think I have seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the mirror part, and then we had the kind of climax, which was the Diabolical Roses. Well, it was bridged in between the Diabolical Roses and the balloons, so that it was like raspberries. It was like the kind of like almost like boobs on the mirror. So they came on a really long mirror, so that we wanted this idea of like a mixture of individual dishes and dishes that you had to share or that you have to meet in the middle to eat, so that it's not about just like this is mine, this is yours. It was about like sharing and like how to eat, negotiate that, and also like now by this point everybody's been talking and been drinking with each other for the whole event, and they've put in situations that make them laugh or make them a bit more open. We hope, So they got this like dessert that kind of wobbled out on the table, and then as they were kind of eating it, we got the accompaniment was like this kind of soured yogurt, kind of slightly salted as well, isn't it? And we wanted this idea of climax, so we had them in syringes, and they were sucked up and they were like squirted into the mouth of the diner. It's almost like an ejaculation, and while that was happening, the performers were like making like ejaculate, like so kind of like getting this.
So funny.
It's like really like playing this kind of like male ejaculation, like really like exaggerating the sound like, as they squirted it. It's gross. But then also like once that had kind of been done, and I think
Were you one of the performers?
was in one of the chorus, and so once that was done, like once, then once the first person does it, then you kind of could grow and you could become more cheeky and more daring with how you do it, and then you kind of see the people that really want to play with you, and then you can really like some people really go for it, and like had like this kind of yogurt like splattered all over, like something just come in their face. And then also then we kind of invited the guests to do it to each other, so that was kind of I guess when the bridge of them becoming performative. Really, like they took on the role of being like, okay, actually, I'm gonna have a go.
They had little pots of yogurt so
They could refill.
And it was just like everywhere, and it was so brilliant to watch. Like obviously, we didn't want spectators, and I was kind of hovering. Because I wasn't a performer in the thing, but I was kind of like running between. So and just helping when I needed to. So I had like a trench coat on, didn't I? My
Yeah.
blonde wig. So I'd just stand on the side, but I just wanted to get in there, and it was just so funny to watch. So I was standing mainly by the kitchen area and just watching as people doing it, and it was just hilarious. Like there's some amazing images.
Yeah.
Somebody posted one actually the other day, Olivia, again, this just came up on my timeline, and it was just like a shot with like all yogurt all up somebody's cardigan.
And it was at that point, so everyone's kind of squirting and they're in quite a playful mood, that we brought in the next course, which was like these scented petals, and they were inside balloons, so that they were like batted around. And then we used the arrows from the first part, so we like got everyone. So now everyone's kind of playing around. We got these balloons, and they were hit across the table, and the arrow came, and then they were popped. So that they were kind of sprinkled with this scent and with these kind of falling petals, sticky petals.
Yeah, and they were that course. I mean, it's not an edible course, but it's like a course or an act in the performance. And that was called Petit Mort, which in French means orgasm, like little deaths means orgasm. And it was this idea that after the kind of climax, there was this orgasm. And at the same time, the soundtrack was the sound of trains going through tunnels, angels singing. So it's this kind of background music that kind of climax and the sound of angels singing, you know, the kind of stereotypical things. But not in a kind of, it was kind of cheesy, but in a way that it was all these sounds layered, so it just sounded incredible. I mean, I say, I like sound, so just say sound.
Yeah.
And that all happened at the same time, didn't it?
Yeah, and then after that, it was like the kind of, the wake up, I guess, or like coming towards the wake up. So the sounds of birds were at the very end.
Yeah.
But then there was like the next course, which was about, which was like the cigarettes and alcohol that you'd have like straight after, just before you go to sleep, or just, you know, kind of post-sex snacks.
Yeah, so it's like a bag of smoke that was ripped by the performers onto, so they've got this smoke. So it's like you're having an after-sex cigarette. And then a smoked cheese course, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like a cigarette on a tile. Have you seen the images of that? Yeah. And then underneath the cheese, it just said goodbye, I think.
Yeah.
And it was like that, almost like a one-night stand.
We did talk about
I think I've only ever had one-night stand. So, and it was pretty awful. And it was like, it was that thing that like in the morning, it's just like, oh, see ya. You know, that, so.
Yeah, we were thinking about like, you know, in the way that you could be like left someone's number. That you should feel like, oh, it's that's it, that you get like a number or like see it, or like I'll call you. And they had that with their smoke and their tobacco. So we sprayed tobacco alcohol in their mouths, like these little dispensers. It's like a breath freshener kind of. That was the style of what we were doing. Well, they were actually invited to do it themselves. So we did some of it, and then we
and it tasted like. It's called Perique, and it's this infused tobacco liqueur, and it tastes like damp tobacco. So it just left this.
It's delicious, actually.
It is lovely. But it leaves this kind of this taste in your mouth like you just hit a cigarette. It's like quite extraordinary.
I don't smoke, so I don't know.
It's quite like.
Do you know like the smell of like fresh tobacco, not cigarettes, but like damp tobacco? Like if somebody has a rolling.
My family used to grow tobacco and sell it.
So you used to grow tobacco. Wow.
That's amazing.
Back in the 90s when I was a kid, so.
Wow.
And they used to try
tobacco
it.
plants, like nicotine. They're called nicotine, aren't they? The tobacco plants.
They're just tobacco.
Plant knowledge is coming back.
Just tobacco. And they're like the whole field of it. So my family just used to harvest it, try it, and sell it to companies.
Oh, nice.
That's cool.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
And then we
that-
keep going, really.
Yeah, so then we got their coats,
Yeah.
and we'd left little notes in their pockets, so that when they later on they could find something. It was like I can't remember. It was like
I think it was matching with their names, because this.
yeah, it was on their thing. So we had to know whose coat was who. So because we didn't know where people were going to be sitting, there was a note in there, and it was like love from.
Love from DR, wasn't it? Diabolical
Yeah.
Roses. But there was like, I can't actually remember because you did all different ones. I don't think I saw a lot of them actually.
Or DB or DR, Diabolical.
Yeah. I know, I think we got it. Yeah, so DR.
Diabolical Roses, and then they were sent. They had this kind of song. The kind of birds were coming up, and then the song from the beginning was repeated again. So the
in a slow,
it was kind of warped. Michael Lightbourne did all the sound design. He kind of did this like it was like the Bee Gees again, but in this kind of warped way, and then the sound of the birds. And we wanted to make sure that the audience didn't. That everywhere they went was new, so that they weren't coming. They didn't go back out the way they came. They went out the back. They had to go out the back door.
Yeah.
So they had to find their way like down these kind of fire escape stairs onto the end of the canal in Digbeth, and we wanted to kind of really abrupt ending, so that, and I think it did kind of feel like that everyone would be like, oh, we have to go. And it was a bit kind of sad, but it was just like, yeah.
But again, like that one night stand, that it just ends, and like you just have to go. So they were kind of kicked out of bed in the morning.
Like into the cold. That's kind of how we wanted it to feel. Like it was a bit kind of being kicked out of bed, but like the dream's over.
And it
like
was
hot.
cold as well, wasn't it?
Yes, freezing. And also logistically, we had another set of diners coming in, so
in 30 minutes. So we had to reset in 30 minutes.
So how many sittings did you have? Just two?
Two. Yeah.
How much were the tickets?
45.
I will go for it.
Yeah,
we were
for
we had funding for that piece, otherwise we never would have been able to afford it for that price.
Was it commissioned or?
No, it was self-initiated, and then we applied to Arts Council to do it. So we had somebody from Arts Council, but we kind of, even though we got support from Arts Council, we didn't have a tube anyway, so the real costs of it were a lot more than we actually spent on the piece. I can't quite remember what it was, how much we spent now. I'm really terrible with remembering them.
Because that was one of the questions, like what was your budget?
Yeah, I can tell you that. Like I haven't got that information with me, but yeah, it's easy to. Yeah. Was it about 8? 7? 6? So yeah, I'll look before I
think it was about 6, but I'm not sure. We should check.
But we actually probably spent, if we'd have paid the performers. Oh no, actually, don't say that. But if we pulled in a lot of favours, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we didn't really pay ourselves very much. So it should have cost about 19,000 to do it. It was like hugely over what we'd actually pay for it. We didn't overspend, but like that's how much it would have cost if we had paid ourselves properly.
I guess that is the tricky thing with like this kind of performance, is like making it, because people are used to going out for dinner and they have an expectation of what they should pay, but it's like that kind of, it's hard to, I guess, like as you say, it's hard to explain what it is, and also in the, when you're trying to sell this kind of event to people, because although for us it's not about like how many, you want people to come, but it's never really about like making loads of money on it. We want it to be like a really fun and artistic event, and like that's what drives it. But it is quite hard to sell it sometimes, because you don't want to give everything away, because you want it to be a surprise and you want it to be entertaining. So, but then you also have to kind of explain something, because otherwise people don't know what they're paying for, what they're investing in. It's not the sort of thing you could just like come and book on the date, because we need to know. So people need to invest in it and like agree to it before they come, or before they really know what it's going to be.
See, I know the struggle, because last year my mom asked me, Isabel, what project are you working on? That was the Intoxicate one. And I was like, where do I begin? I tried at least 10 times to explain them. They have no idea what I'm talking about. And I was just like, you have to go and experience it before you know what it's really about.
And also because we often do these things, although we kind of know we've got a really strong vision for what they're going to be, you never know what the audience reaction is going to be, how it might take the performers, what improvisation might come out of it. So you can.
So it's always just improvised, or is it some sort of?
No, it's probably scripted, but like the script is kind of more. It's not.
It's not line for line. No, it's like saying like, okay, in this moment, like some of the parts are rehearsed. It's all rehearsed. Or we try to rehearse it as much as possible, because I think when having performed in pieces like that before, sometimes when like the kind of awkward performances that come out of it are when people don't quite know what they're doing, and then it becomes a bit and the audience can pick up on that really clearly. And so it's just about making sure that everyone knows what they're doing and why they're doing it, and like, or what's possible. Not, and but like never kind of saying this is what you have to do. It's like saying this is what we want. It's open, and also like in the same way, you know, we're saying with the interactions. If we'd said like you need to do this with each guest, it wouldn't work, because we need to. The performer needs to get the vibe from that person, like how much they can be pushed, how much they want to be, how much they want to play, and you have to kind of work on it that way. So we try and make it as kind of as informative as possible, so they know what's going on and what they can do and where they could lead it, but also with enough space that they can play and they can lead it in a different direction. But I guess as well, it's always quite. Because it's quite timed because of the food coming out, and like we know how much time we have in those moments. I guess in a way it's definitely devised to a point where we know that okay, we've got 20 minutes for this kind of interaction or this performance, and then we'll have an idea or we'll have a kind of vision of what we want, and then whenever we can, it's like for Diabolical process we'd go into the room with the performers and talk about that and kind of create something, so that even if they wanted to add something else, they could. If they weren't sure, they always have something to fall back on that they know is like will work. Yeah. And then in between, because we always usually do 2 performances, we'd say what worked, what didn't. Maybe this point that's
so you do like a little reflection on
tiny one, yeah, like a little debrief before the rehearsals. We'll walk through the space, and because like the service is so much part of the performance. We need to practice the service and like what comes when and who goes there and who takes what, and
because otherwise if you get to the event and it's like, and we still do that, like you can guarantee that we'll be behind the curtain like we are on Sunday, and it's like, but I'm not taking that, no I'll take that, or it comes in a slightly different order, so the chefs have got something ready, like they've got all the cold stuff ready before the hot stuff, and we wanted to get the hot stuff out first. But then we had to wait for them, so we delivered all the cold stuff, and then the hot stuff came after. So it kind of like, so as much as you can, we're going to do this, and this. It kind of always, you just have to kind of on the night be a bit more flexible, be a bit more flexible, don't you?
Yeah, but again, it's just like
even though I went out the back saying to the chefs, it's going to be 3 minutes. They'd wait until the minute before they like on Sunday, for instance, they'd wait. Not so much with Chris, but they'd wait until the minute. And I was going, that needs to come out the oven. And the woman was going, I need to wait for the oven to get out. I'm like, no, just need to get it out of the oven. That's what I'll serve it. And then that holds us up. Do you know? So you have to like have all these kind of contingencies in your head about how you're going to do it and how you can make up time.
Yeah. And also, because I think we always want the flow of it to be high, like so that there is as much as we can, that it's like choreographed and devised, so that something happens and then something else comes in, so that there'll be a performance and then the food comes straight out, or be clear, and then there's time for like a bit of space. So it's quite like well choreographed in terms of like the pace of it and how we want it to be and how we want the audience to feel at those moments and where it's leading to. So if there is any hold-ups, then sometimes it's a bit like, okay, we need to fill it. Because you don't ever want like them to be looking around waiting, unless you actually want that, you know, like you don't want there ever to be a moment where the audience don't feel like it's in control. Like you want them to kind of feel like it's like exciting, but you don't want them to feel like it's been lost, like we don't know what we're doing. Like, you want them to feel safe, that we know what's going on, even if it feels like chaotic or uncomfortable. You want it to feel like they're in a space where they feel like that's contained, or like that's what's supposed to be happening.
They're on a journey rather than waiting for a journey.
Yeah, exactly.
So our objectives, I'll put that in the question. Well, our objectives for doing this piece, I suppose, were to explore, as Sarah said, I think at the beginning, to explore how food and performance can really fuse together, because we've seen a lot of examples of food performance where food is secondary to the performance, or the performance is secondary to the food, and we wanted to explore this, how we could devise something that brought those aspects together, as well as kind of an environment for those two things to come together within, so it provides this kind of, or creates something that's really holistic, that feels full, but all of the aspects are completely reliant on the others to succeed. So the narrative on the performance is has to tie in the narrative of the food, the taste of the food, the texture of the food, the colour of the outfits. So there's a symbiosis, I suppose, between each of the elements. And I think that was one, for me, definitely, the primary intention was to see how we could create food performances that were different from anything else that was being produced in the UK, for sure.
How did it fit with the team? Like, was it like
the team of Diabolical Roses? Well,
so we worked on it together at the beginning. So we kind of talked a lot about the idea and like what we wanted it to be, and kind of came up. Especially you came up with the ideas for food, and that Kaye's got such like vast knowledge of food and scents and textures, and so. And then we spoke a lot about like performance and how those two things would merge, and what the stories were with both of those. And then once we'd kind of had that conversation, we spoke to Chris Hughes, who we spoke to about the menu, and kind of was involved in that. And we talked about like kind of how we do the service and he was, it's when exactly when he got involved in the project, but like
it was like November, December, I think, and we'd been there since probably September. So he came in, actually we had devised the menu to a certain extent. So then we worked with with Chris to kind of develop the menu a bit more. So to think how we could transform our imagined food into reality. And then after that, then we did just about the same time as we made Chris, or just after, we put in a call for performers. We auditioned for performers, and then after that we did the rehearsals.
And then we worked with from the university. Some students who really wanted to get involved in the piece, and they kind of built up part of the chorus, this kind of service. And actually, like, we didn't know what that would be because we hadn't met them, but we were like, okay, we're up for working people, for people being involved. But actually, they were great, and they were really enthusiastic and
really good performers.
So actually, that became like we kind of worked with what we had, and the chorus then kind of grew, and we gave them more performative roles because actually they were really able and really eager, and so the chorus grew in that way because of how we were working together in the room, and these kind of dances that we were devising. So we rehearsed with them as well. And then, I mean, just down to budget, I think like it would be so great to do another show that had loads of budget, that you could really work with a group of performers from the very beginning and devise something. But actually the way it works is because we have such little time, we need to do a lot of the prep before, and so when I go into the rehearsal room it's a bit more like, okay, we need to do this, this and this, like, we have to work quite quickly. But they were great, so that's how that came about. And then Michael Lightbourne did the sound, Dave Checkley did the lighting,
Vivid gave us we hired the venue.
So that was like maybe we had to like look at where the space we could use.
Chris put his chef team together and wrote a spec for kitchen equipment, which we ordered. So it's like, I think we had like the overall artistic remit,
and also the production and the producing
almost.
So on top of doing all that, like you were great with doing the budget and the producing side of it, which actually also does take up a lot of time, like what we're ordering from who, when is it arriving, all the other logistics, because you did all the marketing and pretty much a one-man band, catering all of the like producing stuff as well.
It is like a team though, and I think now I realise more than ever, the last few projects I've done, that it's like this type of project is kind of impossible, and actually not realistic to think of it being like one person that does it. Like it works so much. For me, it's completely collaborative, and it's great. Like I love working with them, and it's great, isn't it? And that thing of like being able to, like, for one of the recent projects I did, being able to actually pay for lighting, pay for sound, like just bring people in with specialisms. You can't pretend to be a specialist. You can have a vision, but then it's really important to think of who can help you deliver that vision.
Yeah.
I think before I was not with so much with Diabolical Roses, although I am a control freak, but like it's so easy to think I'll do that, or it'll be quicker for me to do it than ask them to do it. But actually, sometimes you just have to let go of it and go.
And also because each person brings their own, like as you say, they bring their expertise, and they also bring different ideas that you hadn't thought of, or that like are inspired by what you've said. But you can be like, oh, actually, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Or like kind of, it can develop an idea in a way that actually it's quite hard to do by yourself.
Yeah.
Because it provokes new conversations with people. And actually, from Diabolical Roses, we've worked with everybody again.
Yeah.
On different things. So we've worked with like all the performers again on different.
They worked with
different
us.
shows.
Two of them worked with us on Sunday actually.
Yeah.
Kat and Jess, who were two of the performers of the cast. They were from Diabolical
Chris the
Roses.
Chef.
Detective
Light, Michael. Yeah. So it's quite nice that you kind of build up these teams because then you like collaborate again. And,
How did you feel after the event?
Immediately elated.
Yeah.
And then after the week after, I felt kind of a bit flat.
Post-show blues. Yeah. I think with the like, show like that, because you worked on, you work on it for such a long time.
It's like, it's kind of that, it's a dangerous place that few days after.
Yeah.
Because you read too much into everything. And even though people are going, I really enjoyed it tonight, you still focus on the things that you could have done better.
And also because it's been like a process where you've like developed and devised it, it never kind of ends. So with that project, it was still so much buzzing in our minds, and we thought about it so much. We had like, we probably could make like 5 shows out of the ideas we had for like
We
the
may
ones we
do
picked.
that. We may come back and revisit that.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Because then when we were asked to do like a version of it for a festival in Poland, we thought we were just going to do the same thing again but in a like smaller scale, and actually we ended up doing like the first, like the arrows were the same and then the rest was completely different. We made like a new show inspired by that show, but it was like a new version of the show.
They didn't know what to, they was brilliant at this. It was really good fun working with a different language. You know, working with a
Diabolical Rose is a foreign affair.
Yeah, working with a country, like we don't speak any Polish. I can say 1 word, 2 words, and that's it. Hello and yes.
Yeah. And we were working, it was an art
Performers were Polish, we worked with, so it's like we had to adapt it seamlessly for an audience. So some of
and also, we didn't have a chef with us, we had to prepare the food.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we were working like with the kind of some elements from the menu, but also like how can we change it? So actually there was a whole new course that was like, and like completely new performance pretty much.
Yeah. So we Chris did a bit of consultancy work for us on that before we went over.
But also there was that one thing that actually we hadn't thought about, because it is a different audience, and because it had been like a sexualized show and dealing with things like the sexual content in nature. And one of the performers was like, there was a new course in it that was like about like step-by-step guide on how to perform cunnilingus, and you were doing it with this food that was in your hand. And one of the performers was like, and she kind of questioned it. She was like, but Poland is quite a Catholic country. Do you think people are going to do this? Are they going to be okay? Or it was something that we hadn't even considered. Yeah. Because we were just like, it'll be fine. Like, they'll be...
That's what I was thinking. Like, that was quite dangerous, because I mean, like, my country is just next to Poland, and I'm just like...
It was, what was really interesting about it is the older generation were fine with it, but it was the younger generation that had difficulty with it. The younger women that had difficulty, like I'd say they were probably in their early 20s, and they were just mortified. Whereas the older generation, who were generally kind of, I'd say, with partners or married, they were kind of, they just thought it was hilarious. But it was the younger generation that looked absolutely out of their comfort zone. And we had to go for it because we didn't actually meet with the performers till an hour or 2 before the show. So there was some, we were there super early, weren't we? We were there for 5 days.
But we didn't really meet anybody. So we were just like in this big country house.
They kept saying they'd meet us. We'll meet you tomorrow, we'll meet you tomorrow. And it was like the day before the show when we actually got to see the space that we were performing in. So we just spent a day, we just went walking, didn't we? Got bitten by a mosquito. She was lovely pregnant.
Oh yeah, I was pregnant at the time.
Yeah, it was good fun.
What was your role in the event?
Okay, my role. was actually on the night of the event. I was a bit of a host, so I checked everybody in, made sure everybody was alright, and then it's kind of stage management. We had a stage manager, but it was kind of filling in those gaps. So it was like between the kitchen and the performers, making sure that food was out ready and out on time for each. So kind of that marriage between performance and food. And then filling in, so helping tidy if needed. I think there were a few courses that needed a few extra hands serving, so I'd help serve. So I was a bit of a floater.
And you were performing?
Yeah, so performing, and then also kind of running, like I guess like head of front of house, so like doing the performance, but then also working with Kaye, so like having a conversation with Kaye and with the kitchen to know when we needed to go, what needed to happen, who needed to serve what when, and like kind of just both of us checking on timing, but I was also performing, I was sort of leading the chorus, I guess, in the performance. Yeah.
When are you doing the next one?
Just talking about that. Do you want to do another one? So you've worked on other, like, so Kaye's done a couple.
What was the set design like? Because I haven't seen the space.
Oh, okay. So the set design really started from outside. So the first thing, which was when the couples were dancing in the headlights, it was a car parked at a certain angle and the headlights.
And there was a song blasting from the car.
So that was the first bit of set, and then they walked into the corridor, which is like a
this bit
staircase.
here.
And the staircase was lit, so the tubes were all covered with gels, so they were lit in like a magenta pink, with the sound of a heartbeat that was cooking in.
Heartbeat?
Yeah.
And it's a physiological thing, so that when you use a heartbeat, you naturally attune to that heartbeat. So we use this cooking heartbeat. So as
They just walked up the stairs, we were hoping that they'd be a bit out of breath, so it sped up as they went.
Yeah. And then
it was also looking at that, like, you know, when you first meet someone, you dance and you get that, like, yeah, it's like to kind of like get that kind of vibe going.
And then at the top of the stairs were gates, so we kind of wrapped all roses around them. And then I had like, so I was up there, I had like a shelf, I think like a leaflet something or shelf in it. And on the top it was all envelopes, so with the names on, so I'd give them an envelope and it had their name badge in, and then the thing that they'd attached to the coat and stuff like that, and then just give them a greeting. And I was kind of deadpan as well, although I kept breaking. When I knew somebody, I was a bit like, I'm not so good at like performing. And then they went inside, and so the set got kind of redder and redder, and then inside the lighting was all magenta, hot pinks and reds, so it felt like warm. There were plinths in the space that people could lean across, but also that served a purpose for, they used arrows in there, so everything was quite functional. The bar, there's a bar, and we lit it with pink fluorescence at the back. And the first cocktail was also, we should say, called Diabolical Roses, and it was a pink cocktail with dried rose petals on top. It was beautiful.
Grapefruit and gin.
Grapefruit and gin and Cointreau, I think. And then above the table, similar to how you did in Intoxicate, there was suspended roses at this height, so that they were in vision. It wasn't like that one out there. It's really above you. It was part of you.
They were kind of individually hung down, so sort of floating above the table. And then on the back wall there was like a kind of installation of like the rose petals. There's like a big like row foam things we had on those. Like,
for the actual rose petals or just the
actual rose petals? Yeah. So they'd been like thrown across, they like kind of scattered
it's
all
almost
across
like they what's it called when you like frozen, like freeze frame? So it's as though we'd thrown them and then they'd stopped. So we just like did this spray of rose petals.
And then the table was this was the same material as the performers' dresses. So it was this kind of like dusky pink, almost like denim material. And that was the dinner table.
And the arrows were, you had little tea lights all around the one side, and the arrows were kind of put back in this like we worked actually with the fabric of the building, so we didn't
try to mask it.
You know, apart from the hand-me-down flowers which we tied up, using like a garden net. We didn't really install anything, like what we used was already there, so we used the fabric of the building completely. We didn't build anything for the set.
No. And we used like the big, so it was kind of like industrial meets romantic dinner meets, kind of. Yeah, we wanted it to feel like it was somewhere that you hadn't.
What effect did it have? Like,
I think people felt like they were in a space that they could be free, like, because we really didn't want it to feel like, we wanted it to be like, okay, it's on Valentine's Day, and we kind of did some of the promotion about it being, you know, for couples, or there's like different prices, like $69 for two, whatever, special prices. So, and we wanted it to be really different for Valentine's. We wanted to definitely make sure they weren't going into, you know, a clean, white space with, you know, people like Italian food, and, you know, we wanted it to feel like a bit dirty and a bit like different, so which is why we chose this industrial space, a space where they feel like actually they would be coming for dinner, and even if they'd come there before, it'd be for like arts events, so that it created a kind of, and the space we use is a kind of gallery space, so I think it let people be a bit freer with what they were expecting, but then also I guess like in contrast to that, the food was really high quality, and it was like quality you get in like a fine dining restaurant, so it was that kind of merged together, that the audience had odds about not having any expectations about what it could be, because it's hopefully something that they hadn't experienced before, and that kind of merging of it. I think as well, like having them not know where they were coming to gave an element of suspense, and like that they were kind of exciting, and they had to find a man with an umbrella, and then he led them to the performers, and so they're led into this big car park space, and they watched these dancers.
I hope it wasn't raining that day.
It was, we had to get umbrellas. But then they were taken 2 by 2 up this alleyway. They were kind of invited in. It was a bit like, it was secret, or like it was kind of, it's supposed to feel special, but they were called in and invited in, and that they were then taken up these stairs and led there. So it was almost like not being in control of where they were going as well, and not knowing what the next step was, and something of like leaving whatever just happened behind. And also because, you know, they exited in different ways, so they never went back. It was like coming on a journey, and each step they took, the next one was like further away. So as they went, they kind of.
So it was like kind of very symbolic in a way.
Yeah, it was about them like each. That the kind of performance started before they realised they were there, so they were kind of already involved in it and on this journey. I mean, they were on the journey when they got the invitations, because it was like, we talked about sending them love letters, and there was this kind of correspondence between Kaye and the thing, so they'd buy their tickets, and there was like these emails about like inviting them in, and there was kind of like almost like love letters, like we talked a bit about like sending them handwritten love letters, and I don't know if we actually did that at the end.
No, we did.
That's what the thing at the end was. It's like little love letters to take away.
Yeah, because it depends on people giving their full email. I think you did it for Intoxicated, didn't you? And it's dependent on people giving their full kind of postal addresses and all of that. But yeah, but I think it, like for them to approach something and see something that's very stimulating and beautiful, but also kind of that challenge of entering a space that we don't know is quite important. So making them feel kind of what's the word? Slightly challenged by a new experience.
And being out of control of like what's going to happen now.
So not particularly at ease actually. We didn't want people to like feel it was an easy event. It's not like going to a theatre and just walking into a show. It kind of felt like an adventure, which personally, you know, when I go to those kind of events, I always get a bit of butterflies because you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah,
That's kind of the
excitement
thrill of it. So it's kind of a two-handed thing, isn't it? That you kind of want to experience something that nobody's experienced, and your experience of it will always be different from everybody else's anyway. Yeah. So that kind of intrigue, curiosity, and excitement.
Yeah.